The alarm blared at 5:30 a.m., its harsh buzz cutting through Michael Reynolds' shallow sleep. He reached out, silencing it before it could wake Emma. For a moment, he lay there in the dim light filtering through worn curtains, collecting himself for what promised to be either the best day of the summer or a crushing disappointment. Today was the day, the one he'd promised Emma weeks ago, circled in red marker on their refrigerator calendar. Wonderland Gardens, rides, cotton candy, the works. Michael pulled himself up, the springs of his mattress protesting beneath him. He ran a hand through his dark hair, noting the increased flecks of gray at the temples. A 32-year-old shouldn't have this much gray, he thought. Then again, 32-year-olds weren't supposed to be widowed fathers working two jobs either. He moved quietly through the modest two-bedroom rental, its walls thin enough that every creak threatened to wake his daughter. In the kitchen, he double-checked the worn envelope tucked behind the sugar canister. He'd been adding to it for weeks now, tips from the garage, money saved by skipping lunches, the birthday check his mother had sent last month that he'd pretended to spend on himself. Michael counted the bills again, methodically laying them on the counter. It should be enough. He'd checked the website repeatedly, calculated every possible discount. Still, a knot formed in his stomach as he tucked the envelope into his back pocket. "Daddy?" The small voice made him turn. Emma stood in the doorway, her curly auburn hair a wild tangle around her face, clutching the stuffed T-Rex she'd named Rex when she was 3. At 7, she still couldn't sleep without it. "Hey, Bug," Michael smiled, crouching down to her level. "You're up early. Is it time?" Her green eyes, so like Sarah's, were already wide with anticipation, sleep falling away at the memory of what day it was. "Almost," he said, tucking a wayward curl behind her ear. "Want to help me make breakfast?" Emma nodded enthusiastically, already moving toward the refrigerator. "Can I wear my dinosaur shirt, the one with the sparkles?" "Absolutely," Michael agreed, pulling out eggs and the last of the bread. Wonderland Gardens won't know what hit them when Dinosaur Emma arrives. As they made breakfast together, scrambled eggs that Emma insisted on mixing herself. Resulting in at least 2 on the floor, Michael found himself studying his daughter. The way her nose scrunched when she concentrated, the smattering of freckles across her cheeks, the determined set of her small jaw. She looked more like Sarah every day, a fact that simultaneously warmed and ached in his chest. 3 years. 3 years since the phone call that had shattered their world. Sarah had been driving home from her shift at the hospital, always the responsible one, the planner, the steady foundation of their family. A drunk driver had crossed the median. Just like that, their carefully constructed life had collapsed. Michael had been an engineering project manager then, on track for promotion, but overnight, he became a single father to a devastated 4-year-old who couldn't understand why mommy wasn't coming home. The family medical leave ran out. The late nights and sudden emergencies became impossible to balance with corporate expectations. The mortgage on their suburban dream home became unbearable. So he'd sold the house, taken a job at Frank's auto shop where his friend offered flexible hours, and started delivering packages at night when Emma was asleep. The engineering degree gathered dust, but Emma had stability. That was what mattered. "Is the special parade still at 2 o'clock?" Emma asked, carefully carrying her plate to the sink with the concentration of a bomb technician. "Yep, and the princess show is at 4, Michael confirmed, having memorized the schedule. "We've got the whole day planned out. Captain," Emma beamed, displaying the gap where her front tooth had recently vacated. "This is going to be the best day ever." Michael smiled back, the weight of the envelope in his pocket suddenly feeling heavier. "Yeah, Bug. The best." The parking lot of Wonderland Gardens was already filling when they arrived. Families spilling from minivans and SUVs with coolers and strollers in tow. Michael guided their aging Honda Civic into a spot near the back, wincing at the grinding sound from the brakes. Another repair he couldn't afford right now. Emma practically bounced out of her seat, her dinosaur t-shirt glittering in the morning sun. She wore her special sneakers too, the ones with lights that flashed with each step. Purchased on clearance last month when she'd outgrown her old ones. "Dad, look," she gasped, pointing at the towering castle spires visible over the entrance. It's even bigger than the pictures, Michael chuckled, slinging her small purple backpack over his shoulder alongside his own worn bag. Pretty impressive. Huh, I bet you can see clear to Tennessee from the top. Emma giggled, grabbing his hand and tugging him toward the entrance. Do you think we'll see real princesses? And what about the dinosaur show? You said there were moving dinosaurs that look real? All of it, Michael promised, allowing himself to be pulled along. We'll see it all. The line at the ticket booth snaked back further than he'd expected. Families chatted excitedly, kids bounced on toes, and parents checked phones and sipped coffee from travel mugs. Michael discreetly checked his watch. They'd still have plenty of time for everything. Even with the wait, as they inched forward, he couldn't help but notice how many families seemed comfortable, designer sunglasses, expensive sneakers, Apple watches. He glanced down at his own faded jeans and the work boots he'd carefully cleaned last night, suddenly self-conscious. Dad, can I get mouse ears Zoe from my class got some when she came? And they light up at night. Emma tugged at his sleeve, pointing to a little girl ahead of them sporting sequined ears that probably cost as much as their gas money for the week. We'll see. Bug, Michael hedged, the familiar phrase of parents everywhere when they mean probably not. Let's get inside first, okay? Emma nodded, easily distracted by the colorful banners flapping in the breeze above the entrance. Michael used the moment to pull out his phone, double-checking the ticket prices. His stomach dropped. Special event today. All tickets upgraded to premium experience adults, $89 and our children $79.99. No, that couldn't be right. The website had listed weekday prices at $69.99. He frantically scrolled through the site, finding the fine print, prices subject to change for special events and peak days. Michael swallowed hard, doing quick mental math. Even with everything he'd saved, they would be short, not by much, but enough. Dad, we're getting closer. Emma bounced beside him, oblivious to his distress. I can almost see the ticket booth. He forced a smile. Mind racing. Maybe there was a discount he hadn't considered. Military, no. RDA member, he wasn't. Local resident. Worth a try, though Willow Creek was technically the next county over. The line moved steadily forward, each step tightening the knot in Michael's chest. Emma skipped beside him, chattering about which ride she wanted to try first. He barely heard her, too focused on the growing reality that he might have to break her heart. 3 families ahead of them now, then 2, then 1. Next, please. Michael stepped forward, Emma's hand in his. The ticket attendant, a cheerful woman with a Cindy name tag and a practiced smile, greeted them from behind the glass. Good morning, welcome to Wonderland Gardens. How many tickets today? 2, please, Michael said, keeping his voice steady. 1 adult, 1 child. Is there, any kind of discount available? I saw online the tickets were supposed to be $69.99. Cindy's smile dimmed slightly. I'm sorry, sir. Today is our Summer Spectacular special event. All tickets are automatically upgraded to premium experience. That's $89.99 for adults and $79.99 for children. Michael felt Emma's curious gaze on him as he reached for his wallet, pulling out the envelope. Right. Of course. He slid the bills through the small opening in the glass, trying to ignore the tremor in his hand. Cindy counted the money, her fingers efficiently sorting the worn bills, her brow furrowed slightly. I'm sorry, sir. You're a bit short. Michael's throat tightened. How much? You're about $10 short for the total. $10 after all the extra shifts, the skipped meals, the careful planning. $10 stood between Emma and the day he'd promised her. Is there maybe a regular admission option without the premium experience? He asked, his voice lower now. Cindy shook her head apologetically. Not today, sir. It's a special event. Dad. Emma tugged at his jacket, her voice small. Is everything okay? Michael crouched down, meeting her eyes. Yeah, sweetheart. Just checking something. The lie tasted bitter, but he couldn't bear to see the disappointment bloom across her face. Not yet. He turned back to Cindy, desperation creeping into his voice. What about just one ticket for her I could wait? I'm sorry, but children must be accompanied by an adult, Cindy said gently, already starting to gather his money to return it. Michael felt the world narrow, sounds muffling as if he were underwater. Behind him, the line shifted impatiently. He could feel the weight of stares on his back, imagining the judgments, the failure, the disappointment that would soon claim Emma's excited face. Add 2 more tickets to their order. Please, my treat. The voice was clear, confident, and unmistakably directed at the ticket attendant. Michael turned. Startled, a woman stood behind them, perhaps in her mid-30s, with a composed elegance that seemed effortless. Her dark hair was pulled back in a loose ponytail, and she wore stylish but simple jeans, a soft gray sweater, and a light jacket despite the June warmth. Designer sunglasses perched atop her head, and a sleek leather purse hung from her shoulder. But it wasn't her obvious style that caught Michael off guard. It was the quiet authority in her voice and the kind determination in her eyes as she extended a credit card toward Cindy. Michael began, pride flaring instantly. That's really not necessary. We can, please, the woman said, her voice lower now, meant just for him. I'd like to help. I can't accept that, Michael replied, his back stiffening. Thank you, but is she going to come with us? Emma interrupted, looking up at the woman with unabashed curiosity. The woman smiled then, crouching slightly to Emma's level. Only if that's okay with you and your dad. I'm Rebecca, by the way. I'm Emma, I'm 7.5. This is Rex. She thrust her dinosaur forward proudly. He likes roller coasters. Rebecca's smile widened, genuine amusement sparking in her eyes. Well, it's very nice to meet you. Emma and Rex, I happen to like roller coasters too. Sir, Cindy interjected from the booth, there are people waiting. Michael stood frozen, caught between his pride and the hope blooming on Emma's face. Rebecca seemed to sense his struggle, standing to face him directly. It's not charity, she said quietly, her eyes meeting his. It's just a gift, one parent to another. You have kids, he asked, grasping for some reason this made sense. A fleeting shadow crossed her face. No, but I know what it means to want to make someone happy. The line behind them shifted again, murmurs of impatience growing louder. Emma looked between the adults, confusion replacing her excitement. Sir, Cindy said firmly, I need a decision. Michael exhaled slowly, his shoulders dropping a fraction. Okay, he said finally, the word feeling both like surrender and relief. Thank you. Rebecca nodded once, turning back to Cindy and handing over her card without further comment. The transaction was completed in seconds, wristbands dispensed, and just like that, they were being ushered toward the turnstiles. As they passed through the gates, the full sensory experience of Wonderland Gardens engulfed them, music floating from hidden speakers, the distant screams of delight from roller coaster riders, the sweet scent of funnel cakes and cotton candy. Emma bounced beside him, already pointing toward a spinning teacup ride visible just ahead. Thank you, Michael said to Rebecca, awkwardness settling between them. I don't even know your last name. Morgan, she supplied with a small smile. Rebecca Morgan. Michael Reynolds, he offered, extending his hand. And you've met Emma. Rebecca shook his hand firmly. Nice to officially meet you both. You really don't have to spend the day with us, Michael added hastily. You've already done more than enough. Rebecca glanced around the park, something unreadable crossing her face. Actually, I'd like to join you, if that's okay. I came alone. And frankly, theme parks are more fun with company. She paused, adding with a hint of amusement. Especially company that includes dinosaur experts. Emma, who had been scanning the park map they'd been handed, looked up with a grin. I know all about the T-Rex. Their arms were short, but they could run super fast and their teeth were as big as bananas. Fascinating, Rebecca replied, entirely sincere. I have so much to learn. Michael studied her, still trying to make sense of this stranger who had swooped in and saved their day. She didn't seem to fit any easy category in his mind. Not a bored rich woman looking for a charity case. Her interaction with Emma was too genuine. Not someone looking for gratitude or praise. She seemed almost uncomfortable with his thanks. So, Rebecca asked, turning to Emma, what ride should we try first? Dinosaur expert. Emma didn't hesitate. Teacup twister. It spins super fast and makes your brain feel funny. Rebecca laughed, glancing at Michael with raised eyebrows. Brain funny sounds perfect. And just like that, they were off. Emma leading the way, her light-up sneakers flashing with each excited step. Michael followed, still stunned by the turn of events, watching as this elegant stranger fell into step beside his daughter, listening intently to Emma's explanation of why T-Rexes would love spinning rides because of their excellent balance. The teacup twister was a riot of color, massive cups in bright primary hues spinning on platforms that themselves rotated around a central axis. Children shrieked with delight as parents grimly held on, many looking slightly green as the ride spun faster and faster. You sure about this? Michael asked as they joined the line. It's pretty intense, Rebecca smiled, a flash of something playful in her eyes. I've sat through 5-hour board meetings with hostile investors. I think I can handle spinning teacups. The line moved quickly, and soon they were being ushered toward a bright blue cup with yellow stars painted on its side. Emma scrambled in first, claiming the spot directly in front of the central wheel that controlled the cup's spin speed. Michael slid in beside her, and Rebecca took the remaining spot, completing their circle. Ready, the attendant asked, securing the safety bar. Born ready, Emma declared, hands already gripping the wheel with determined anticipation. The ride began slowly, the platform making lazy circles as the cups gently rotated. Emma looked disappointed at the leisurely pace. Just wait, Michael told her with a knowing smile. It gets faster. As if on cue, the ride picked up speed, the cups beginning to spin more rapidly as the entire platform accelerated. Emma squealed with delight, turning the central wheel with all her might to make their cups spin even faster. Help me, she called to Rebecca, who immediately leaned forward to add her strength to the wheel. Michael watched in amusement as Rebecca, perfectly composed just minutes ago, threw herself into the spirit of the ride, her ponytail whipping around as she and Emma spun their cup into a blur. Her laughter joined Emma's, uninhibited and genuine. The world outside their cup became a colorful smear as they spun faster and faster. Michael gripped the safety bar, his stomach lurching, but couldn't help laughing at the sheer joy on Emma's face and the surprising abandon on Rebecca's. When the ride finally slowed to a stop, all three stumbled out on wobbly legs, Rebecca smoothing her now disheveled ponytail with a breathless laugh. That was awesome, Emma declared, walking in zigzags as her equilibrium slowly returned. Can we go again later? Definitely, Rebecca agreed before Michael could answer. She caught his eye and added, if that's okay with your dad, of course. Michael nodded, still trying to reconcile this laughing, windblown woman with the polished stranger who had appeared at the ticket booth. Sure, but maybe we try something a little gentler next. Give our stomachs a chance to recover. The fairy tale boat ride goes right through the castle, Emma suggested, consulting the map with the seriousness of a military strategist. And then we can see the dinosaur show at 11. Lead the way, Captain, Michael said, and Emma marched ahead, her dinosaur clutched firmly under one arm, as they followed. Rebecca fell into step beside Michael. She's wonderful, she said quietly. So full of life. Yeah, Michael agreed, his chest swelling with the familiar mix of pride and fierce love. She's everything, Rebecca nodded, understanding in her eyes. You're a good dad. It shows. The simple observation, delivered without fanfare, caught Michael off guard. When was the last time someone had noticed not his efforts or his struggles, but simply acknowledged that he was doing well by his daughter? He couldn't remember. Thanks, he managed, unexpectedly touched. I try. Rebecca smiled but said nothing more as they caught up to Emma, who was now excitedly pointing at a castle spire where a mechanical dragon periodically exhaled a harmless puff of smoke. The fairy tale boat ride wound through a dark tunnel beneath the castle, small boats drifting past animatronic scenes from classic stories. Emma sat between them, pointing out each display with the authority of someone who'd memorized every fairy tale. That's Sleeping Beauty, and look, the spinning wheel dad. Do people still use spinning wheels? Not so much anymore, Michael answered, amused by her running commentary. They do, actually, Rebecca interjected. For making specialty yarns and textiles, it's becoming popular again with artisans. Emma turned to her with wide eyes. Really, have you used one? No, Rebecca laughed. But my grandmother did. She made the most beautiful blankets. As they drifted past a scene of Cinderella's pumpkin transforming into a carriage, Michael found himself watching Rebecca in the dim, colorful lights. There was something intriguing about her, a depth behind her polished exterior that didn't fit with his initial assumptions. The boat emerged into sunlight, Emma already plotting their next adventure. Dinosaur show, then lunch, then the roller coaster. She declared. The morning flowed seamlessly into afternoon, one attraction blending into the next. The dinosaur show featured impressively realistic animatronic creatures that made Emma bounce with excitement. They ate lunch at a counter-service restaurant, Rebecca insisting on treating, despite Michael's protests, where Emma methodically separated her chicken nuggets into herbivores and carnivores before eating them. Throughout it all, Rebecca seamlessly integrated herself into their day, never overstepping but participating fully. She held Emma's drink while the girl adjusted her shoe. She laughed at Michael's corny dad jokes without a hint of condescension. She took pictures of Michael and Emma in front of the castle when asked, then joined them for a selfie when Emma insisted. By mid-afternoon, it felt as if they'd known each other for months instead of hours. The cosmic coaster next, Emma declared as they exited a simulated space mission ride. It goes upside down. Michael hesitated, glancing at his daughter's height. I'm not sure you're tall enough for that one. Bug. Emma's face fell instantly. But I've been growing. I'm taller than last month. Let's check the height requirement, Rebecca suggested diplomatically. And if you're not quite there yet, I bet there are other cool rides you can try. They approached the roller coaster entrance, where a wooden cutout marked the minimum height. Emma stood against it, stretching as tall as possible. She was at least 2 inches short. I'm sorry, sweetie, the attendant said kindly. You'll have to wait a couple more years for this one. Emma's lower lip trembled dangerously, the first sign of potential tears all day. Michael crouched down quickly, going into dad damage control mode. Hey, remember that spinning rocket ship ride we saw earlier? The one that goes up and down while it spins? I bet you're tall enough for that one. And it looked even cooler than this. It's not the same, Emma mumbled, clutching Rex tighter. The cosmic coaster is the best one. Rebecca knelt beside them, her voice gentle. You know what's special about having to wait for something when you finally get to do it? It's even more amazing. She glanced up at the towering roller coaster. Plus, between you and me, your dad looks a little scared of this one anyway. Emma giggled despite her disappointment, looking at Michael with newfound suspicion. Are you scared, Dad? Michael played along, feigning indignation. Me scared, absolutely. He paused dramatically. Correct. That thing is terrifying. Emma's giggle turned into a full laugh. You're silly. Fine. We can do the rocket ships instead. Crisis averted. They made their way to the rocket rotator, a ride that combined vertical movement with spinning. Emma was well above the height requirement, restoring her confidence completely. As they spun through the air, Emma squealing with delight between them. Michael found himself enjoying the day in a way he hadn't anticipated. The constant worry about money, about making the day perfect, had faded to the background. Instead, he was simply present, laughing when Emma pointed out a cloud shaped like a dinosaur, feeling the sun warm on his face, sharing amused glances with Rebecca when Emma's observations took particularly creative turns. After the rocket rotator, They wandered toward a section of the park designed for younger children, complete with a splash pad area where kids ran through jets of water shooting from the ground. "Can I get wet? Dad, please," Emma begged, already eyeing the children running through the water. Michael hesitated, not having packed a change of clothes. "I don't know. Bug, your shoes will get soaked, and we still have a lot of walking to do." "Actually," Rebecca interjected, pointing to a nearby kiosk, "they sell water shoes and ponchos right there. If you want." I can handle it," Michael interrupted, perhaps too quickly. He'd accepted the tickets and lunch, but a line had to be drawn somewhere. "But thank you." Rebecca nodded, understanding without offense. "Of course." Michael purchased the cheapest pair of water shoes available, wincing slightly at the price but deciding Emma's joy was worth the expense. She kicked off her regular shoes, which Michael tucked into her backpack, and darted toward the splash pad with unbridled excitement. "She's fearless," Rebecca observed as they watched Emma run directly through the highest water jet. "Always has been," Michael agreed. "Even as a toddler, she was the one climbing to the highest slide, jumping off the highest step, gave her mother heart attacks regularly." It was the first time he'd mentioned Sarah all day, and the words slipped out before he realized it. A familiar pang followed, though duller than it once had been. Rebecca seemed to sense the shift. "How long has it been?" she asked quietly. Michael glanced at her, surprised by her perception. 3 years. Car accident." Rebecca's expression softened with genuine sympathy. "I'm so sorry." "Yeah," Michael said, watching Emma splash through the water. "Me too." They stood in companionable silence for a moment, watching Emma play. There was something comforting about Rebecca's presence. No platitudes, no awkward attempts to change the subject, just quiet understanding. "She has your smile," Rebecca finally said. "Same crinkles around the eyes." Michael felt the corner of his mouth lift involuntarily. Everyone always said she looked just like her mom. But yeah, the smile's all Reynolds. Emma ran over then, dripping wet and grinning from ear to ear. "Dad, there's a rainbow in the water when the sun hits it. Come see." She grabbed his hand with wet fingers, tugging him toward the splash pad. Michael laughed, allowing himself to be pulled along. "You too," Emma called back to Rebecca, extending her other hand. Rebecca hesitated only briefly before kicking off her flats and setting her purse safely aside. She took Emma's offered hand and followed them into the spray of water. The next few minutes dissolved into laughter and shrieks as they darted through the water jets. Michael found himself thoroughly soaked, his t-shirt clinging to his shoulders, hair dripping into his eyes. Rebecca was equally drenched, her carefully styled ponytail now plastered against her neck. Mascara slightly smudged beneath her eyes. But it was the unrestrained joy on her face that struck him, all traces of her composed. Polished exterior washed away, replaced by genuine, childlike delight. "The rainbow!" Emma shouted, pointing to where sunlight refracted through the spray, creating a small but perfect arc of colors. "See it?" They huddled together, squinting through the mist at the ephemeral rainbow. For a moment, the three of them stood still, united in simple wonder at the ordinary magic of light through water. The moment broke when a particularly powerful jet suddenly erupted beneath them, soaking them further and sending them scrambling away with surprised laughter. They retreated to a nearby bench, Emma declaring herself officially waterlogged with dramatic flair. Michael pulled a small towel from his backpack he'd learned years ago to always be prepared for messes and helped Emma dry her face and arms. Rebecca wrung water from her ponytail, laughing as she attempted to restore some order to her appearance. "Well, that was refreshing," she said wryly, blotting at her face with a tissue from her purse. "Sorry about your clothes," Michael offered. Noticing the designer label peeking from her jacket, Rebecca waved away his concern. "Clothes dry. Memories last." She checked her watch, then looked up with a smile. "Perfect timing, the Princess Parade is about to start. Should we grab a spot?" Emma leapt up, water shoes squeaking. "Yes, I want to see the Ice Princess. She's my favorite." They found a good viewing area along the parade route, Emma positioned in front with Michael and Rebecca standing behind her. Other families pressed in around them, parents hoisting smaller children onto shoulders for better views. "You've been to Wonderland before?" Michael asked Rebecca as they waited, curious about her familiarity with the schedule. "Once or twice," she replied with a small smile. "Business functions, mostly, team building events, client entertainment." She looked around, adding softly, "It's different experiencing it like this." "Better or worse?" Michael asked, genuinely curious. Rebecca's gaze settled on Emma, who was practically vibrating with anticipation. "Infinitely better." The parade began with a fanfare of trumpets, princesses and characters appearing on elaborate floats. Emma squealed with delight as each new character appeared, waving enthusiastically when the Ice Princess passed by in a shower of artificial snowflakes. Michael found himself watching Rebecca's reactions as much as the parade. There was something fascinating about seeing the spectacle reflected in her eyes, a mixture of appreciation and wistfulness that suggested deeper thoughts than the moment demanded. As the final float passed and the crowd began to disperse, Emma turned to them with flushed cheeks and sparkling eyes. "That was amazing. Did you see how the dragon breathed real fire?" And the Ice Princess waved right at me. "She definitely did," Rebecca confirmed solemnly. "I think she recognized a fellow royalty." Emma beamed at the suggestion. Standing a little taller, "What should we do next?" Michael checked his watch, surprised to find it was already late afternoon. The day had flown by faster than he'd expected. "The animal show starts in 20 minutes, he suggested, "and it's on the way to the Enchanted Carousel, which I know you wanted to ride." "Perfect," Emma declared, already consulting her now wrinkled park map. "And then we can get ice cream." They made their way toward the animal amphitheater, their clothes still damp but drying in the warm afternoon sun. Emma skipped ahead, stopping periodically to make sure they were following. "She has incredible energy," Rebecca commented as they walked. "Always has," Michael agreed. "Even as a baby, she was constantly in motion. Sarah used to joke that she'd burned a marathon's worth of calories just trying to keep up with her." "Sarah was your wife?" Rebecca asked gently. Michael nodded. "High school sweethearts. If you can believe it, everyone said it wouldn't last. But we were together 15 years before." He trailed off, then cleared his throat. "She was a nurse, pediatric unit. Kids loved her. Like mother, like daughter," Rebecca observed, watching Emma charm an older couple with an enthusiastic explanation of her dinosaur. "Yeah," Michael agreed softly. "Just like her." They reached the amphitheater and found seats just as the show was about to begin. For the next 30 minutes, they watched trained dogs, birds, and even a small pig perform impressive tricks. Emma was enthralled, gasping audibly when a colorful macaw flew directly over their heads. Halfway through the show, Michael noticed Rebecca checking her phone discreetly. A slight frown crossed her face as she read whatever was on the screen, her fingers moving quickly to type a response before tucking the phone away again. The momentary glimpse of tension was gone so quickly, Michael almost thought he'd imagined it. Rebecca was once again fully engaged with the show, laughing alongside Emma when the pig rolled over and played dead. After the animal show, they made their way to the Enchanted Carousel, an elaborately decorated vintage merry-go-round with hand-painted horses and mythical creatures. Emma immediately selected a purple unicorn with a flowing silver mane, climbing aboard with practiced ease. "Which one are you going to ride?" she asked Rebecca, who was surveying the carousel with appreciation. Rebecca considered, walking along the platform. "I think this one." She stopped beside a sleek black horse with gold accents, positioned as if mid-gallop. Michael chose a traditional brown horse next to Emma's unicorn, helping her secure the safety belt before mounting his own steed. As the carousel began to turn, music box melodies filling the air, Michael watched Emma's face light up with simple joy. The late afternoon sun filtered through the canopy above, casting everything in a warm, golden glow that seemed to suspend reality. Rebecca caught his eye from across the carousel, a genuine smile playing across her lips as she pretended to race Emma. Leaning forward dramatically over her horse's neck, Emma giggled uncontrollably, mimicking the posture on her unicorn. "We're winning, Dad," she called out, her voice carrying over the tinkling music. "Not for long," Rebecca called back, making a show of urging her mount faster. The moment felt surreal, this elegant stranger playing make-believe with his daughter. The three of them caught in a spinning circle of light and music. All the day's worries temporarily suspended, for the first time in longer than he could remember. Michael felt the tight knot of responsibility in his chest loosen just a fraction as the carousel slowed to a stop. Emma declared it the best ride ever and insisted they all get ice cream to celebrate their successful race. They found a nearby ice cream parlor, its windows framed in pastel gingerbread trim. Emma selected a rainbow sherbet with sprinkles. Michael opted for classic chocolate, and Rebecca chose strawberry in a cup rather than a cone. They sat at a small wrought iron table outside the parlor, watching people stream past as the afternoon began its gradual slide toward evening. Emma recounted her favorite moments of the day so far, ice cream occasionally dripping onto her dinosaur shirt unnoticed. And then, when the parrot flew right over us, I could feel the wind from his wings," she exclaimed, gesturing with her cone and nearly sending a scoop of sherbet flying. "Careful there, bug," Michael warned, handing her a napkin. Rebecca watched their interaction with a soft expression that Michael couldn't quite decipher. There was something almost wistful in her gaze, as if she were observing something precious but distant. "What about you?" he asked, breaking her reverie. "What's been your favorite part so far?" Rebecca seemed surprised by the question, as if she hadn't considered herself a participant entitled to preferences. "The splash pad, I think," she answered after a moment. "I can't remember the last time I did something so spontaneous." Her phone buzzed again, and this time Michael definitely caught the flash of tension that crossed her face as she glanced at the screen. She silenced it without responding, tucking it back into her purse with a barely perceptible sigh. "Everything okay?" Michael asked, curiosity getting the better of him. "Fine," Rebecca replied automatically, then seemed to reconsider. "Just work. It never quite stops." "What do you do?" Emma asked, ice cream now smeared across one cheek. Rebecca hesitated, as if choosing her words carefully. "I help companies solve problems. Like a doctor, but for businesses," Emma suggested, trying to make sense of the vague description. Rebecca smiled. "Something like that." Michael sensed there was more to the story, but before he could ask, Emma spotted something over his shoulder and gasped dramatically. "Dad, they're setting up the bubble machine." "Can we go, please?" Sure enough, a park employee was preparing a large bubble machine near the central plaza, a crowd of children already gathering in anticipation. "Sure thing," Michael agreed, gathering their trash. "Let's go catch some bubbles," as Emma darted ahead. Rebecca fell into step beside Michael. "She's incredibly resilient," she observed quietly. "After everything she's been through." Michael nodded, watching his daughter's bobbing curls as she ran. "Kids are amazing that way. They feel everything so deeply, but they also heal in ways adults can't." He paused, adding, "I worry sometimes that she won't remember Sarah clearly as she gets older." "You keep her memory alive," Rebecca said with certainty. "It's obvious in the way you talk about her. Emma will know her mother through you." The simple observation, delivered without platitudes or awkwardness, touched Michael deeply. "Thank you," he said, his voice slightly rough. "That means a lot." They reached the bubble area, where Emma was already spinning amidst a cloud of iridescent spheres, laughing as they popped against her outstretched hands. The late afternoon sun caught each bubble, turning them into miniature prisms that scattered rainbow light across the plaza. Rebecca's phone buzzed again, more insistently this time. She glanced at it, her expression hardening slightly. "I'm sorry," she said to Michael. "I need to take this. Just give me a minute." "Of course," Michael replied, curiosity piqued. "We'll be right here." Rebecca stepped away, moving toward a less crowded area near a decorative fountain. Michael kept one eye on Emma while discreetly observing Rebecca's conversation, though he couldn't hear her words. Her body language had transformed completely back straight, gestures precise, expression controlled. This was a different Rebecca than the one who had laughed on the carousel and run through the splash pad. She paced slightly as she spoke, One arm crossed over her chest while the other held the phone to her ear. Her expression shifted from controlled to frustrated, her free hand now gesturing more emphatically, though she kept her voice low. The tension radiating from her was unmistakable. After several minutes, Rebecca ended the call, standing motionless for a moment with closed eyes as if collecting herself. When she returned to Michael's side, her composed smile was back in place, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Sorry about that," she said lightly. "Where were we?" "Everything okay?" Michael asked, sensing the question might be unwelcome, but asking anyway. "Just the usual fires to put out," Rebecca replied with practiced ease. "Nothing that can't wait until tomorrow." Michael studied her, wondering about the world she came from so different from his own, where fires meant actual mechanical problems in the shop. Not whatever corporate crisis had prompted that call. "Dad, Rebecca, look," Emma called, breaking the moment. She was attempting to catch a particularly large bubble on her outstretched palm, concentration etched across her small features. They moved to join her. The conversation temporarily shelved, but as they played amid the swirling bubbles, Michael found himself increasingly curious about the elegant enigma who had entered their lives so unexpectedly this morning. The shadows lengthened across Wonderland Gardens as the late afternoon gave way to early evening. The energy of the park shifted subtly, children moved a bit slower, parents checked watches more frequently, and the bright enthusiasm of morning mellowed into the satisfied exhaustion of a day well spent. Emma, despite her seemingly boundless energy, had begun to show signs of fatigue. Her skipping had slowed to a walk, and she leaned against Michael's side as they consulted the park map for their next activity. "The fireworks start at 8:30, Michael noted, checking his watch. "That gives us time for one more ride and dinner before the show." "I'm hungry," Emma admitted, a sure sign her batteries were running low. "Me too," Rebecca agreed. "I saw a nice sit-down restaurant near the castle. Might be good to rest our feet for a bit." Michael hesitated, knowing full well that the table service restaurants in the park were significantly more expensive than the counter service options they'd utilized for lunch. Rebecca seemed to read his thoughts. "My treat," she said simply. No arguments, before Michael could protest. Emma yawned widely, sealing the decision. A quiet dinner sitting down would be exactly what they needed before the grand finale of fireworks. The restaurant, called Royal Feast, was designed to resemble a medieval banquet hall, complete with faux stone walls, tapestries, and servers dressed in period-inspired attire. Despite the early dinner hour, it was busy, but Rebecca spoke quietly to the host, and they were immediately led to a table near a window overlooking the castle. "Did you make a reservation?" Michael asked as they settled into their seats. Rebecca shrugged lightly. "I know the manager." Michael raised an eyebrow but didn't press further, instead helping Emma with her menu and suggesting options he knew she'd enjoy. When their server arrived, Rebecca ordered a glass of wine. Michael chose water, and Emma requested chocolate milk. "With extra chocolate, please." As they waited for their drinks, Emma busied herself with the children's activity sheet provided by the restaurant, carefully coloring a cartoon princess with the crayons supplied. "So," Michael began, seizing the opportunity to satisfy his growing curiosity, "Rebecca Morgan, who knows the manager and helps companies solve problems. What's your story?" Rebecca took a moment to consider her answer, folding her hands on the table. "What would you like to know?" "Let's start with the basics," Michael suggested. "Where are you from? What brought you to Wonderland alone today? Why help complete strangers at the ticket booth?" Rebecca smiled slightly at the direct questions. "I live in Atlanta now, but I grew up in Chicago. As for today," she paused, seeming to make a decision about how much to share. "I needed a day away from expectations, and when I saw you and Emma at the ticket booth, it just felt like—" "Like what?" Michael prompted when she trailed off. "Like the universe giving me an opportunity," she finished. "To do something simple and good without ulterior motives or strategic advantages. Just human connection." Their drinks arrived, momentarily pausing the conversation. Emma immediately took a long sip of her chocolate milk, emerging with a milk mustache that made both adults smile. You're being deliberately vague about what you do. Michael observed once the server had left to give them more time with the menus. Rebecca's smile turned slightly rueful. Force of habit, I suppose. She took a sip of her wine, then continued. I'm the CEO of Morgan Innovations. We're a technology consulting firm that specializes in helping traditional industries transition to digital platforms. Michael blinked, the pieces suddenly clicking into place her quiet authority. The urgent phone calls, the way she'd effortlessly secured them a table in a crowded restaurant. CEO, he repeated. That's impressive. It's a job, Rebecca replied with surprising candor. One that comes with a corner office, too many meetings, and very little time to ride carousels or catch bubbles. There was something in her tone, not quite bitterness, but perhaps resignation that resonated with Michael. Different worlds, perhaps, but the struggle to balance obligations with joy was universal. Is that why you're here today? He asked. Escaping the corner office? Rebecca considered this, absently tracing the rim of her wineglass. Partly, I was supposed to be in Savannah this weekend for a charity event, but I canceled at the last minute. Told my assistant I was taking a personal day. She smiled faintly. I think she nearly fainted from shock. You don't take many days off, Michael observed. Not in the last 5 years, Rebecca confirmed. Building the company has been all-consuming. Their server returned to take their orders, a grilled chicken sandwich for Michael, pasta for Rebecca, and chicken fingers for Emma, who had temporarily abandoned her coloring to contribute to the conversation. Do you have a Rex too? She asked Rebecca seriously. Rebecca looked confused for a moment, then smiled in understanding. You mean a special stuffed animal? No, I don't. Everyone should have one, Emma declared with the absolute certainty of childhood. They keep the scary dreams away. That's very good advice, Rebecca acknowledged solemnly. I'll have to remember that. As their food arrived and they began to eat, the conversation shifted to lighter topics. Favorite movies. Emma was currently obsessed with anything featuring dinosaurs or princesses, preferably both. Music preferences. Michael admitted a weakness for 90s grunge, while Rebecca confessed to secretly enjoying pop music in her car. And dream vacations. Emma wanted to visit the real castle that the Princess Castle is based on, while Michael described a quiet cabin by a lake. Throughout the meal, Michael found himself increasingly drawn to Rebecca's company. Beyond her obvious intelligence and success, there was a genuine warmth to her interactions with Emma and a refreshing directness when speaking with him. She listened when they spoke, truly listened, not just waiting for her turn to talk, a quality Michael had found increasingly rare in his experience. As they finished their meals, Emma's eyelids had begun to droop slightly, the long day finally catching up with her boundless energy. Maybe we should skip the fireworks, Michael suggested, noting her fatigue. It's been a long day, and they don't start for another hour. No, Emma protested immediately, sitting up straighter. I'm not tired. I want to see the fireworks. Rebecca checked her watch thoughtfully. The show is only 20 minutes long, and it's the perfect end to the day. She hesitated, then added, Actually, I might be able to help with the wait. There's a special viewing area not far from here, away from the crowds. It has comfortable seating, and Emma could rest until the show starts. Michael raised an eyebrow. Let me guess you know the manager of that too. Rebecca smiled enigmatically. Something like that. After Rebecca paid for dinner, brushing aside Michael's renewed protests with surprising firmness, they followed her through the increasingly crowded park. As night fell, the atmosphere had transformed once again. Lights twinkled from every tree and building. Music seemed softer and more magical, and an air of anticipation built as families staked out spots for the upcoming fireworks display. Rebecca led them away from the main hub, down a path marked VIP access that was guarded by a uniformed attendant. She exchanged a few quiet words with him, and he immediately unhooked the velvet rope, waving them through with a respectful nod. Okay, seriously, Michael said as they walked down the secluded path. Who are you? Really the owner's daughter? Rebecca laughed, genuine amusement lighting her face. Nothing so dramatic. My company did some digital transformation work for the park's parent corporation last year. One of the perks was VIP access whenever I wanted. The path opened onto a small private viewing area set on a slight rise overlooking the castle and the lake beyond. Comfortable cushioned benches were arranged in a semicircle, offering perfect views of where the fireworks would appear. A small refreshment table was set up to one side, offering bottled water, popcorn, and cookies. Emma's eyes widened at the exclusive setup. "This is amazing. It's like we're royalty." "For tonight, we are," Rebecca agreed, guiding them to a bench in the center of the viewing area. Only two other families occupied the space, leaving plenty of room for them to spread out comfortably. Emma settled between Michael and Rebecca, accepting a small bag of popcorn from the attendant with a polite thank you that made Michael smile with paternal pride. Despite her excitement about the upcoming show, she leaned against his side, her body relaxing as she nibbled on her popcorn. The night had cooled slightly, and Michael noticed Emma shiver almost imperceptibly before he could react. Rebecca was already shrugging out of her light jacket. "Here," she said, draping it gently around Emma's shoulders. "Can't have our dinosaur expert catching a chill." Emma snuggled into the jacket, which was far too big but perfectly cozy. "It smells nice," she observed. "Like flowers." "Jasmine?" Rebecca supplied with a smile. "It's my favorite scent." They sat in comfortable silence as the minutes ticked toward showtime, the park lights dimming gradually to prepare for the spectacle. Emma's head grew heavier against Michael's arm, though she insisted she was just resting my eyes for a minute when he asked if she was getting sleepy. "She's fighting it hard," Michael murmured to Rebecca over Emma's head. "Determined not to miss a thing?" "Stubborn," Rebecca observed with a smile. "I wonder where she gets that from." Michael chuckled softly. "Guilty as charged." Though her mother was just as bad, maybe worse, in the near darkness, with Emma half dozing between them, the conversation felt more intimate, the barriers between strangers further dissolving. "Thank you," Michael said quietly, "for today, not just the tickets, but everything. It's been a long time since we've had a day like this." Rebecca was silent for a moment, her profile illuminated by the soft lights from the path behind them. "I should be thanking you," she finally replied. "Both of you. This has been," she seemed to search for the right word, "real. More real than anything I've done in a very long time." Before Michael could respond, the lights went out completely, and a hush fell over the park. Emma jerked awake immediately, all traces of fatigue vanishing as she sat up straight, eyes fixed on the dark sky above the castle. The first firework exploded in a burst of golden red, its boom echoing across the water. Emma gasped in delight, grabbing both Michael's and Rebecca's hands in excitement. "It's starting," she whispered unnecessarily, her face upturned in wonder. More fireworks followed, blues and greens arcing high before cascading down in shimmering waterfalls of light. Purples and pinks exploding in perfect synchronization with the sweeping musical score that now filled the night air. "Look, Dad, that one looks like a flower." Emma pointed as a particularly elaborate burst bloomed across the sky. "Beautiful," Michael agreed, though he found his gaze drawn as much to his daughter's enraptured expression as to the spectacle above. These were the moments he lived for, the pure, uncomplicated joy that reminded him why every struggle, every sacrifice was worthwhile. He glanced over at Rebecca and found her watching Emma too, a soft smile playing across her lips, catching his gaze. She didn't look away or pretend she hadn't been observing them. Instead, she held his eyes for a moment, something unspoken passing between them, a shared appreciation for the wonder of childhood. Perhaps, or a deeper connection neither had anticipated when the day began. The grand finale erupted overhead, dozens of fireworks exploding simultaneously in a thunderous symphony of light and sound that illuminated the entire park. Emma bounced on the bench, clapping her hands in delight as the final golden shower of sparks slowly faded from the sky, leaving behind only the acrid scent of gunpowder and the echoing applause of the crowd. As the park lights gradually came back on, Emma turned to Rebecca with shining eyes. "That was the best day ever," she declared with absolute conviction. Rebecca smiled, something vulnerable flickering across her face for just an instant. Yes, she agreed softly. It really was. The spell broken. Reality began to reassert itself. Other families gathered their belongings, heading toward the exits. The park would be closing soon, the magical day coming to its inevitable end. We should probably head out, Michael said, reluctance evident in his voice. It's already past someone's bedtime. I'm not tired, Emma protested automatically. Though her eyelids were growing heavy again now that the excitement of the fireworks had passed, they made their way toward the exit, Emma walking between them, occasionally listing to one side or the other as fatigue caught up with her. By the time they reached the main gate, she was struggling to keep her eyes open, her steps slowing dramatically. Michael scooped her up without comment, settling her against his shoulder where she immediately rested her head. Rex clutched securely in one hand. I can give you a ride home, Rebecca offered as they passed through the turnstiles into the now crowded parking lot. My car's right over there. She pointed to a sleek black SUV parked in a reserved section near the entrance. Michael hesitated, glancing down at his drowsy daughter, the prospect of navigating the crowded lot to find his car, then driving home with an exhausted child, was less than appealing. Still, accepting more help felt like crossing another line. That's really not necessary, he began, but Emma lifted her head slightly. Can we? Dad, she mumbled sleepily. I'm so tired. That settled it. If you're sure it's not out of your way, Michael conceded. Not at all, Rebecca assured him, leading the way to her vehicle. The SUV was as luxurious inside as its exterior suggested: soft leather seats, advanced technology dashboard, even small screens built into the headrests. Rebecca opened the back door, helping Michael settle Emma into the booster seat that was already installed. You have a booster seat? Michael asked, surprised. My sister's kids, Rebecca explained as she secured the straps around the now half-asleep Emma. They visit occasionally. They climbed into the front seats, and Rebecca started the engine, the vehicle purring to life with barely a sound. Where to? She asked, entering the navigation system. Michael gave her his address in Willow Creek, trying not to feel self-conscious about the modest neighborhood she'd be driving to, as they pulled away from Wonderland Gardens, the castle still illuminated behind them. A comfortable silence settled in the car. Emma was fully asleep now, her breathing deep and even. Rex tucked securely under one arm, and Rebecca's jacket still draped around her shoulders. She's out, Michael observed softly, glancing back at his daughter. Probably won't wake up until morning. Rebecca smiled, keeping her eyes on the road. She had quite a day. You both did. We all did, Michael corrected gently. I still can't believe you spent your entire day with us. Rebecca's hands flexed slightly on the steering wheel. Best decision I've made in a long time. They drove in silence for a few minutes, the lights of the highway sliding past the windows. Michael found himself studying Rebecca's profile in the dim glow of the dashboard, the elegant line of her jaw, the slight furrow of concentration between her brows as she drove, the way she occasionally tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. So, he began, breaking the silence. CEO of Morgan Innovations. Sounds impressive. Rebecca gave a small, almost self-deprecating laugh. It sounds more impressive than it feels most days. Endless meetings, constant travel, decisions that keep me up at night. But you must enjoy it, Michael suggested, to have built it yourself. I did, Rebecca acknowledged. I do. In many ways, it's challenging. It matters. It makes a difference in how companies function. She paused, then added more quietly. But lately I've been wondering if I've built a company at the expense of building a life. The candid admission hung in the air between them, unexpected in its vulnerability. What made you cancel your plans this weekend? Michael asked, sensing there was more to the story. Rebecca was quiet for a long moment, as if deciding how much to share. I was engaged until 3 months ago, she finally said, her voice carefully neutral. The charity event in Savannah was one we'd planned to attend together. I'm sorry, Michael offered, understanding the weight behind those simple words. Don't be, Rebecca replied with surprising firmness. Calling it off was the right decision. David was, she searched for the right words, more in love with what I represented than who I am. The successful power couple. The perfect merger of ambition and connections. She shook her head slightly. I realized I was doing the same thing I help companies avoid following an outdated blueprint instead of adapting to what actually matters. What does matter? Michael asked quietly. Rebecca glanced briefly toward the back seat, where Emma slept peacefully. Days like today, she said simply. Real connections. Joy without agenda. The freedom to be messy and spontaneous and just human. The navigation system announced their exit, breaking the moment as they turned onto smaller roads. The landscape changed from highway commerce to residential neighborhoods, houses growing closer together and more modest. Left at the light, Michael directed as they approached an intersection. Then second right onto Maple Avenue. Rebecca followed his directions, slowing as they entered a quiet street lined with small, well-kept houses. She pulled up in front of the address he'd provided, a modest one-story rental with a small front porch and a yard that showed signs of careful maintenance despite its size. She put the car in park but left the engine running, turning slightly in her seat to face Michael. In the dim glow of the street lamp, her expression was soft, almost hesitant. Thank you, she said quietly, for sharing your day with me, for letting me be part of it. Thank you for making it possible, Michael replied, equally soft. Emma will remember this forever. An awkward silence fell between them, both sensing that something significant was ending, but unsure how to acknowledge it. I should get her inside, Michael finally said, gesturing toward the sleeping Emma. Of course. Michael climbed out and carefully extracted his daughter from the booster seat, managing to transfer her to his shoulder without fully waking her. Rebecca got out as well, opening the trunk to retrieve Emma's backpack and Rex, who had fallen to the floor during the drive. Here, she said, handing them to Michael. Don't forget these. Your jacket, Michael remembered suddenly, realizing Emma was still wrapped in Rebecca's light coat. Keep it, Rebecca said with a small smile. She looks comfortable. They stood for a moment on the sidewalk, the sleeping child between them, both reluctant to end the unexpected connection that had formed over the course of one extraordinary day. Well, Michael finally said, shifting Emma slightly on his shoulder. I guess this is goodbye. Rebecca nodded, something unreadable flickering in her eyes. I guess it is. She leaned forward suddenly, pressing a gentle kiss to Emma's head, then stepped back, her professional composure sliding back into place like a familiar mask. Goodbye, Michael, she said softly. Take care of your dinosaur expert. Goodbye, Rebecca, he replied, watching as she slipped back into her car and pulled away, taillights disappearing around the corner like the final fading sparks of the evening's fireworks. Standing there in the quiet night, his sleeping daughter heavy against his shoulder, Michael felt an unexpected hollowness in his chest. The day had been perfect, more than perfect, but now it was over, leaving behind memories that would have to be enough. With a quiet sigh, he turned and carried Emma up the short path to their front door, wondering if they'd ever see Rebecca Morgan again. The garage hummed with the familiar sounds of metal against metal, the rhythmic clank of wrenches, and the occasional hiss of compressed air. Michael wiped sweat from his brow with the back of his hand, leaving a smudge of grease across his forehead as he leaned deeper under the hood of Mrs. Patterson's aging Buick. Reynolds, Frank's gruff voice called from the office. Phone call. Michael straightened, his back protesting after 2 hours bent over the engine. Coming. He wiped his hands on a shop rag as he made his way to the small office tucked in the corner of Frank's auto shop. The cramped space smelled of coffee and motor oil, with faded posters of classic cars lining the walls and paperwork stacked haphazardly on every surface. Frank, a barrel-chested man in his 60s with steel-gray hair and permanent grease under his fingernails, held out the phone. School, he said simply. Michael's heart immediately accelerated. Calls from school rarely meant good news. This is Michael Reynolds, he said, pressing the receiver to his ear. Mr. Reynolds, this is Miss Thompson from Willow Creek Elementary. Emma's fine, she added quickly, sensing his concern. But she's in the nurse's office with a slight fever. Nothing serious. But school policy says she needs to be picked up. Michael glanced at the clock, 1:30 p.m. He still had 4 hours left on his shift, and 2 cars waiting for repair. I'll be there as soon as I can, he promised, already calculating how quickly he could wrap up his current job. Frank was watching him as he hung up. Emma's sick of fever, Michael confirmed. I need to go get her. Frank waved a hand dismissively. Go on. Jimenez can finish the Buick. Thanks, Frank, Michael said, gratitude evident in his voice. It wasn't the first time his boss had accommodated his single-parent emergencies, and Michael knew it wouldn't be the last. 20 minutes later, he pulled up to the elementary school, having taken just enough time to wash the worst of the grease from his hands and face. The school secretary waved him through to the nurse's office, where he found Emma curled on a vinyl cot, her cheeks flushed and Rex clutched to her chest. Hey, Bug, he said softly, crouching beside her. Not feeling so hot. Huh. Emma's eyes, glassy with fever, brightened slightly at the sight of him. Daddy, she mumbled. My head hurts. I know, sweetheart. He brushed her tangled curls from her forehead, feeling the heat radiating from her skin. Let's get you home. Okay. The school nurse appeared with Emma's backpack and a sympathetic smile. Just a low-grade fever, likely a virus. Keep her hydrated and let her rest. Call her doctor if it goes above 101 or doesn't break by tomorrow. Michael nodded, gathering Emma into his arms. She felt smaller than usual, her normally boundless energy subdued by illness. Thank you, he told the nurse, slinging the backpack over his shoulder. The drive home was quiet, Emma dozing in the back seat while Michael mentally rearranged his schedule. He'd have to cancel his evening delivery shift, which meant being short on this week's grocery money. But emergencies happened, and Emma always came first. At home. He settled her on the couch with a blanket, Rex, and her favorite dinosaur documentary on low volume, after coaxing her to take some children's ibuprofen and sip some water. He called his evening job to explain the situation. Third time this month. Reynolds, his supervisor noted, disapproval evident in his tone. I know. Dave, I'm sorry. Emma's sick, and I don't have backup childcare. A heavy sigh came through the phone. Look, I get it. You're in a tough spot, but we need reliable drivers. Maybe this isn't the right fit for your situation? The implication was clear. Are you letting me go? Michael asked, keeping his voice low so Emma wouldn't hear. Let's call it a mutual parting of ways, Dave replied, not unkindly. You're a good worker when you're here, Reynolds, but we need someone who can be here consistently. After hanging up, Michael stood in the kitchen, phone still in hand, a hollow feeling spreading through his chest. The delivery job had been nearly a quarter of his income, not the end of the world, but significant enough to tighten an already tight budget. Dad, Emma's voice called weakly from the living room. Can I have some juice? Michael pushed aside his worries, forcing a smile as he returned to his daughter. Coming right up, bug, apple, or grape. Later that evening, with Emma finally asleep in her bed. Michael sat at the kitchen table with bills spread before him and a calculator in hand. The numbers weren't adding up, no matter how many times he tried different combinations. Mortgage, utilities, groceries, car insurance, medical bills still lingering from Sarah's final days. Even cutting out every non-essential expense, he was going to come up short without the delivery income. He rubbed his eyes, exhaustion settling deep in his bones. There were options. He could ask Frank for more hours. Though the shop was already struggling, he could look for another part-time gig, though finding one that accommodated his need to be home evenings with Emma would be challenging. He could ask his parents for help, though their fixed income meant any assistance would be a strain for them too. The Wonderland Gardens envelope still sat on the refrigerator, now empty of the cash it had once contained, but preserved as a memento of their perfect day 2 weeks ago. Michael found his gaze drawn to it, remembering how close they had come to disappointment before Rebecca Morgan had appeared in their lives. Rebecca. He hadn't heard from her since that night, though he hadn't really expected to. They lived in different worlds, after all. Their paths had crossed for one magical day, and now they had diverged again, as was natural. So why couldn't he stop thinking about her? It wasn't just gratitude, though he certainly felt that. It was something more, the way she had connected with Emma so effortlessly, the genuine laugh that had replaced her polished exterior as the day progressed, the vulnerable honesty of their conversation on the drive home. Michael shook his head, bringing himself back to reality. The bills wouldn't pay themselves. And daydreaming about a woman who was probably jetting off to Paris or Tokyo for business meetings wouldn't help his current situation. He was just about to close his laptop when a notification chimed a new email. Probably another bill, he thought wryly. Instead, the sender's name made him freeze. Rebecca Morgan R. Morgan Innovations. Subject. Thank you. Michael clicked on it immediately, his heart inexplicably racing. Michael, I've started this email a dozen times over the past 2 weeks, never quite finding the right words. How do you thank someone for giving you a day of pure authenticity in a life that's become increasingly scripted? I keep thinking about Emma's boundless enthusiasm, your patient devotion, and how for one day I wasn't Rebecca Morgan, CEO. I was just Rebecca, who got soaked on the log ride and pretended to race on a carousel horse. I hope this isn't too forward, but I'd love to take you both to lunch this weekend. If you're free, consider it a small thank you for letting me be part of your day at Wonderland. My number is below if you'd prefer to call or text. Warmly. Rebecca. Michael read the email twice, then a third time, something warm and unexpected blooming in his chest, without overthinking it. He picked up his phone and typed out a text to the number she had provided. Hi, Rebecca. It's Michael Reynolds. Just got your email. Emma would love to see you again. So would I. Lunch sounds great. He pressed send before he could second-guess himself, then sat back, slightly stunned by his own boldness. A response came almost immediately. Michael, so glad to hear from you. How about Saturday? 1 p.m. There's a nice little cafe in Willow Creek called Sunrise. Does that work for you both? He smiled, typing back perfect. Emma will be thrilled. Fair warning, you'll probably hear the entire dinosaur documentary she's been watching on repeat while homesick today. Rebecca's response was quick. Is she okay? The genuine concern in those two simple words touched him. Just a fever. She's on the mend. I'm glad. Looking forward to a full dinosaur debriefing on Saturday. Get some rest. Michael. He set down his phone. The bills temporarily forgotten as a sense of anticipation replaced his earlier worry. Saturday suddenly couldn't come fast enough. Sunrise Cafe occupied a sunny corner of Willow Creek's main street, its large windows and cheerful yellow awnings making it a local favorite. Michael parked across the street, checking his watch, 12:55 p.m., right on time. Is Rebecca here yet? Emma asked, bouncing slightly in her booster seat. Her fever had broken the day after he'd brought her home, and by Saturday, she was back to her usual energetic self. Let's go see, Michael replied, helping her unbuckle. He'd spent more time than he cared to admit choosing his outfit that morning, finally settling on his newest pair of jeans and a blue button-down shirt that Sarah had always said brought out his eyes. Emma skipped ahead of him toward the cafe, her purple dress, her choice, swirling around her knees. Michael caught up just as she reached for the door handle. Remember our manners, he reminded her gently. Emma nodded solemnly. I remember. No talking with my mouth full, and I have to say please and thank you. And I can't ask Rebecca if she's rich, even though Tommy at school said she probably is, because she was on a magazine. Michael stifled a laugh. That's, mostly right. Though maybe we don't need to mention what Tommy said at all. They stepped into the cafe, the bell above the door announcing their arrival. The space was bright and welcoming, with mismatched vintage tables and local artwork adorning the walls. The lunch crowd was modest, a few elderly couples, some young parents with toddlers, a pair of teenagers hunched over textbooks. And there, at a corner table by the window, was Rebecca. She looked different than she had at Wonderland, more casual in dark jeans and a simple white blouse. Her dark hair loose around her shoulders instead of in the practical ponytail she'd worn at the park. But her smile when she spotted them was exactly as Michael remembered, warm and genuine, lighting up her whole face. Rebecca. Emma broke free from Michael's hand and darted across the cafe, barely avoiding a collision with a waitress carrying a tray of water glasses. Rebecca stood just in time to receive Emma's enthusiastic hug, laughing as the little girl wrapped her arms around her waist. "Hello, dinosaur expert, I hear you've been adding to your knowledge base this week." Emma looked up with wide eyes. "How did you know? Your dad mentioned you were watching documentaries," Rebecca explained, glancing up as Michael approached. Their eyes met over Emma's head, and something unspoken passed between them, a shared warmth, a mutual recognition. "Hi," Michael said simply, suddenly feeling awkward. Should he shake her hand, hug her? He settled for a small wave, which immediately felt ridiculous. Rebecca saved him from his discomfort, gesturing to the table where 3 places were already set. "I got here a little early. Hope this spot is okay." "It's perfect," Michael assured her, helping Emma into a chair before taking his own seat. A waitress appeared with menus and took their drink orders, coffee for the adults and apple juice for Emma. As she left, an awkward silence threatened to descend, but Emma quickly filled it. "Did you know," she began with the authority of a professor addressing students, "that some dinosaurs had feathers like? They weren't all scaly. Some looked more like giant chickens." Rebecca's eyes widened with appropriate amazement. "Giant chickens? That's incredible. I bet they didn't taste like chicken, though." Emma giggled. "No, people didn't eat dinosaurs. People weren't even alive yet when dinosaurs lived." "That's a relief," Rebecca replied seriously. "I wouldn't want to meet a T-Rex while out for a walk." The conversation flowed more easily after that, Emma serving as an unwitting buffer against the strange tension that hummed between the adults. They ordered grilled cheese for Emma, sandwiches for Michael and Rebecca, and talked about safe topics: Emma's school, Michael's work at the garage, the unusually warm weather they'd been having. It wasn't until Emma asked to visit the restroom, which was within sight of their table but allowed a moment of privacy, that Rebecca leaned forward slightly. "I'm really glad you texted," she said, her fingers curling around her coffee mug. "I wasn't sure if I was overstepping." "You weren't," Michael assured her quickly. "It was unexpected, but nice. Emma's been talking about you nonstop since Wonderland." Rebecca smiled, a hint of color touching her cheeks. "She's incredible. You're doing an amazing job with her." "I'm trying," Michael said, the familiar weight of single parenthood momentarily visible in his expression. "Some days are harder than others." "Sure, no." Rebecca seemed about to say more when Emma returned, sliding back into her seat and immediately resuming her dinosaur lecture where she'd left off. The moment passed, but Michael caught Rebecca watching him thoughtfully throughout the rest of the meal. After lunch, with plates cleared and coffee cups refilled, Emma noticed the small playground visible through the cafe window across the street. "Can we go play? Dad, please, I want to show Rebecca how high I can swing." Michael glanced at Rebecca, not wanting to presume on more of her time. "I'm sure Rebecca has other plans for her afternoon." "Bug. Actually," Rebecca interjected, "I'm completely free. I'd love to see those swinging skills, if it's okay with your dad." Emma turned pleading eyes to Michael, who found himself smiling despite his attempt to remain casual. "Okay, but just for a little while. We don't want to take up Rebecca's whole Saturday." The small playground was one of Willow Creek's modest attractions, a well-maintained but basic collection of swings, slides, and climbing structures. At this hour, it was relatively quiet, with only a few other children playing under the watchful eyes of parents seated on surrounding benches. Emma made a beeline for the swings, calling for Rebecca to watch as she demonstrated her super pumping technique that allowed her to swing higher than any other kid in her class, a claim Michael knew to be exaggerated but endearing in its confidence. "She has no fear," Rebecca observed as they sat on a nearby bench, watching Emma launch herself skyward. "Never has," Michael agreed. "She was climbing out of her crib before she could walk. Sarah used to say she'd either be an Olympic athlete or give us both heart attacks before she turned 10. The mention of Sarah slipped out naturally, and Michael realized it didn't hurt as much as it once had to speak her name. The ache was still there, would always be there, but it had softened from sharp grief to something more like bittersweet remembrance. "How long were you together?" Rebecca asked gently. 15 years, Michael replied. "High school sweethearts. If you can believe it, everyone said we were too young, that it wouldn't last." He smiled faintly at the memory. "We were determined to prove them wrong." "And you did," Rebecca said softly. Michael nodded, watching Emma swing higher, her curls flying behind her. "Yeah, we did. Just not in the way we planned." They sat in companionable silence for a moment, the sounds of children playing and birds calling, creating a peaceful backdrop. "Can I ask what happened?" Rebecca finally ventured, her voice gentle. "You mentioned an accident, but—" "Drunk driver," Michael said. The word's still difficult, even after 3 years. Sarah was driving home from her nursing shift. It was raining. The other driver crossed the median. He took a breath. "She died at the scene." Rebecca's hand found his on the bench between them, her fingers warm as they curled around his. "I'm so sorry, Michael." He nodded, accepting her sympathy without the awkwardness that usually accompanied such moments. Rebecca didn't try to offer platitudes or change the subject, and he appreciated that more than he could express. "It was hard," he acknowledged. "Still is sometimes. But Emma needed me to keep going. So I did. One day at a time." Rebecca squeezed his hand gently before releasing it. "She's lucky to have you." "I'm lucky to have her," Michael corrected, his gaze following his daughter as she abandoned the swings in favor of the slide. "She saved me as much as I saved her." Emma waved from the top of the slide, calling for them both to watch her daring descent. They obliged, applauding appropriately when she reached the bottom and took an exaggerated bow. "Your turn, Rebecca," Emma called, pointing to the slide. Rebecca laughed, shaking her head. "I think I'm a little too big for that slide." "Emma, no one's too big for slides," Emma declared with the absolute certainty of childhood. "Dad goes on it with me all the time." Michael shrugged when Rebecca glanced at him questioningly. "She's not wrong, though I usually end up stuck halfway down." "See, now you have to try," Emma insisted, already grabbing Rebecca's hand and tugging her toward the playground equipment. To Michael's surprise, Rebecca allowed herself to be led to the slide, kicking off her flats before climbing the ladder with mock seriousness. "Like this," she called down to Emma, who was watching critically from below. "Legs out straight," Emma instructed, "and you have to say 'we' on the way down. It's the rule." Rebecca caught Michael's eye, an amused smile playing across her lips. Then, to his further astonishment, she arranged herself at the top of the slide, called out a theatrical "we," and pushed off, sliding down with surprising grace for a CEO of a technology consulting firm. Emma applauded wildly when Rebecca reached the bottom, her blouse slightly rumpled and a genuine laugh escaping her. "Perfect," Emma declared. "Dad's turn now." The afternoon stretched on, time slipping away unnoticed as they played. Michael found himself relaxing in a way he rarely did. The constant weight of responsibility temporarily lifted as he rediscovered the simple joy of being present in the moment. Rebecca, too, seemed transformed, her corporate polish giving way to an unguarded playfulness that suited her far better than her earlier reserve. She joined Emma on the merry-go-round, helped her cross the monkey bars, and even participated in an elaborate game involving dinosaurs and princesses that only Emma fully understood the rules of. It wasn't until the sun began to dip lower in the sky that Michael realized how late it had grown. "We should probably head home," he said reluctantly. "Emma has school tomorrow, and I've got an early shift." Emma's protest was immediate and passionate. "No, we're having too much fun. Can't Rebecca come over? Please, she hasn't even seen my room yet." Michael opened his mouth to explain why that wasn't appropriate, but Rebecca spoke first. "I should probably get going too," she said gently to Emma. "I have some work to finish before tomorrow, but maybe we can do this again sometime." Emma's disappointment transformed instantly to hope. "Promise?" Rebecca glanced at Michael, a question in her eyes. He nodded slightly, surprised by how much he wanted there to be a next time too. "I promise," Rebecca told Emma solemnly. "As long as it's okay with your dad." "It's okay with him." Emma assured her confidently. Right. Dad. Michael laughed, ruffling his daughter's curls. Right. Bug. It's definitely okay with me. They walked back to the cafe parking lot together, Emma between them, holding both their hands and occasionally swinging herself forward with their support. It felt natural, comfortable in a way Michael hadn't experienced in years. At Rebecca's car, the same sleek SUV from Wonderland, Emma hugged her fiercely. Thank you for lunch and playing with me, she said, her voice muffled against Rebecca's middle. Thank you for showing me your amazing swing skills, Rebecca replied, returning the hug with equal warmth. And for teaching me about feathered dinosaurs. I'm much smarter now. Emma beamed, then skipped over to Michael's car, announcing she would wait there while they said goodbye. Michael watched her go, amused by her transparent attempt to give them privacy. She's not subtle, he noted wryly. Rebecca laughed, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. Subtlety is overrated. I had a wonderful time today. Michael. So did I, he admitted. It was nice. Really nice. Sickern. They stood there for a moment, an awkward tension suddenly replacing the easy camaraderie of the afternoon. Michael found himself wanting to say more, to suggest seeing her again, but uncertain of the rules for this unusual situation. Rebecca saved him once again. I'd like to do this again, she said directly. Maybe dinner next time. There's a good Italian place just outside Willow Creek. Relief and pleasure washed through him. I'd like that. Emma, too, obviously. Obviously, Rebecca agreed with a smile. Though, she hesitated, then continued with characteristic directness. I'd also enjoy talking with just you sometime, if that's not too forward. Michael felt a warmth spread through his chest that had nothing to do with the afternoon sun. Not too forward at all, he assured her. I'd like that too. Rebecca's smile widened, genuine pleasure lighting her features. Good. I'll call you. She leaned forward then, pressing a quick, soft kiss to his cheek before stepping back. Goodbye, Michael. Tell Emma I'll be dreaming of dinosaurs tonight. He watched her drive away, his cheek still warm from her kiss. A strange lightness in his step as he walked to his own car where Emma waited, bouncing impatiently. Is Rebecca your girlfriend now? She asked immediately as he slid into the driver's seat. Michael choked slightly, caught off guard by the blunt question. No, Bug. We're just friends. Emma considered this, buckling her seatbelt with practiced ease. But you like her. Right, your face gets all smiley when she talks. Does it? Michael asked, feigning ignorance as he started the car. Uh-huh. And you wore your blue shirt that Mom always said was your handsome shirt. Michael glanced at his daughter in the rearview mirror, momentarily speechless. Sometimes he forgot how perceptive children could be, how little escaped their notice. Rebecca's nice, he finally said, carefully neutral. I enjoy her company. Emma nodded sagely. I think she likes you too. She laughed at your jokes even though they weren't that funny. Hey, Michael protested, though he couldn't help laughing. My jokes are hilarious. Mom said they were dad jokes, Emma informed him seriously. That means only dads think they're funny. The mention of Sarah didn't sting as it might have once. Instead, it felt right somehow, natural that she would be part of this conversation. Her memory a gentle presence rather than a painful absence. Your mom was a very wise woman, Michael acknowledged with a smile. Now, what should we have for dinner? I was thinking dinosaur-shaped chicken nuggets. Emma's cheer of approval echoed through the car as they drove home, the simple joy of the day settling around them like a comfortable blanket. The weeks that followed took on a new rhythm, with Rebecca becoming a regular presence in their lives. It started with dinner at the Italian restaurant Emma included, of course followed by a Saturday afternoon at the local science museum, which featured a special dinosaur exhibit that had Emma practically vibrating with excitement. Each time, Rebecca seemed to integrate more seamlessly into their world. She remembered Emma's favorite color purple, laughed at Michael's admittedly corny jokes, and never showed a hint of impatience with Emma's endless stream of dinosaur facts and princess stories. For Michael, These outings became islands of unexpected happiness in the otherwise challenging sea of daily life. The loss of his delivery job had forced him to pick up extra hours at the garage, leaving him more exhausted than usual, but still determined to make time for these bright spots with Rebecca. If she noticed his occasional fatigue or the way he carefully calculated the cost of every meal before ordering, she never mentioned it. Instead, she seemed genuinely interested in their lives, asking about Emma's school projects and Michael's work with the same attentiveness she might give to a corporate merger. It was after one such outing, a Sunday afternoon picnic at the local park, that Rebecca finally joined them at their home. Emma had been campaigning for this escalation for weeks, desperate to show Rebecca her room and her growing collection of dinosaur figures. "Please, Dad, we can make spaghetti." Rebecca said it's her favorite, unable to refuse his daughter's pleading, and, if he was honest, equally eager to extend their time together, Michael had issued the invitation. To his surprise and pleasure, Rebecca had accepted immediately. "I'd love that," she'd said, her smile warming him in ways he was becoming increasingly aware of. "Just tell me what I can bring." Now, as Michael stirred the pasta sauce and Emma set the table with more care than she'd ever shown before, he found himself unusually nervous. Their modest rental suddenly seemed shabby through imagined outside eyes, the worn couch with its carefully placed throw to hide a stain, the kitchen cabinets in need of new paint, the mismatched dishes Emma was arranging with such pride. "Dad, should we use the special cups, the ones without any chips?" Emma asked, standing on her step stool to reach the higher cabinet. "Sure, bug," Michael agreed, touched by her desire to make things nice for their guest. "The blue ones," Emma nodded seriously, "and I put Rex in his bow tie for fancy dinner." Michael smiled, his nervousness fading slightly in the face of his daughter's enthusiasm. What did it matter if their home wasn't fancy? Rebecca had seen them soaking wet at a splash pad, had ridden down a children's slide in designer clothes, had spent an entire afternoon playing prehistoric princesses in the sandbox. If she cared about chipped paint and secondhand furniture, she wouldn't be Rebecca. The doorbell rang, sending Emma flying to answer it while Michael quickly wiped his hands on a dish towel. He heard his daughter's excited greeting, followed by Rebecca's warm reply. Before they appeared in the kitchen doorway, Rebecca looked lovely in simple dark jeans and a soft green sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders. She carried a small bakery box in one hand and a bouquet of cheerful daisies in the other. "I know you said not to bring anything," she said with a sheepish smile, "but my grandmother taught me never to arrive empty-handed." "Flowers," Emma exclaimed, already pulling her step stool toward the sink. "I'll put them in water. We have a special vase that used to be Mom's." Michael accepted the bakery box, peeking inside to find a chocolate cake. "You didn't have to," he said, though the gesture touched him deeply. "I wanted to," Rebecca replied simply. Her gaze swept the kitchen, taking in the bubbling pot of sauce, the colander waiting for pasta, the carefully set table. "It smells amazing in here." "Dad makes the best spaghetti," Emma declared, carefully arranging the daisies in a blue glass vase. "He puts secret ingredients in the sauce. Garlic and a splash of red wine," Michael stage whispered to Rebecca. "Not so secret, but she likes to think it's magic." Rebecca laughed, setting her purse on a kitchen chair. "Can I help with anything?" "You're our guest," Michael protested, but Rebecca was already rolling up her sleeves. "I'm a terrible cook, but I can toss a salad or fill water glasses," she offered. "Put me to work, Chef Reynolds." The simple domesticity of preparing dinner together, Rebecca washing lettuce while Michael drained the pasta, and Emma proudly arranged garlic bread on a plate, felt both novel and strangely familiar. Their movements around the small kitchen developed an easy choreography, as if they'd done this dozens of times before. Dinner itself was filled with laughter and conversation, Emma dominating much of the discussion with elaborate stories from school and detailed plans for her upcoming birthday. Michael watched as Rebecca engaged with his daughter, asking questions and responding with genuine interest rather than the polite tolerance many adults showed toward children's rambling narratives. "And then," Emma continued, twirling spaghetti around her fork with limited success, "Ms. Thompson said my dinosaur drawing was so good it's going to be in the art show next month." You'll come see it. Right. Rebecca. The question, delivered with such casual certainty that of course Rebecca would be in their lives a month from now, created a brief pause. Michael glanced at Rebecca, ready to step in and explain that she might be busy, that they shouldn't presume on her time. But Rebecca's response was immediate and warm. I wouldn't miss it for anything, she assured Emma. When exactly is the show? I'll put it in my calendar right now. She pulled out her phone. Adding the date, Emma proudly recited to her schedule with the same seriousness she might give to a board meeting or client presentation. The simple action spoke volumes, and Michael felt something shift inside him, a wall carefully constructed around his heart beginning to crumble. After dinner, Emma insisted on giving Rebecca the grand tour of their home, proudly showing off her bedroom with its purple walls and dinosaur decals, her bookshelf organized by favorites and super favorites, and her special treasure box where she kept ticket stubs from Wonderland Gardens and a smooth pebble Rebecca had found for her at the park. Michael followed behind, seeing their modest home through new eyes as Rebecca exclaimed over Emma's artwork and admired the family photos displayed in simple frames along the hallway. She paused at one showing Michael and Sarah on their wedding day, both laughing as they fed each other cake. She was beautiful, Rebecca said softly, eyes taking in Sarah's radiant smile and the obvious love between the young couple. She was, Michael agreed, the familiar ache present but no longer overwhelming. Inside and out, Rebecca nodded, her gaze lingering on the photo for a moment longer before moving on. There was no jealousy or discomfort in her expression, only a gentle acknowledgement of the life Michael had lived before and the loss he had endured. By the time they returned to the kitchen for cake and coffee, Emma was yawning despite her protests that she wasn't tired at all. The excitement of the day had finally caught up with her. How about one small piece of cake? Michael negotiated. And then it's bedtime. Bug, you've got school tomorrow. Emma agreed reluctantly, insisting that Rebecca sit beside her while they enjoyed the chocolate cake, which was even more delicious than it had looked by the final bite. Emma's eyelids were drooping despite her best efforts to stay awake. I think someone's ready for bed, Rebecca observed gently as Emma's head began to nod. No, Emma protested weakly. I want to stay up with you and Dad. Tell you what, Rebecca suggested. How about I help tuck you in, and then I promise to come back another day very soon. This compromise satisfied Emma, who allowed herself to be led through her bedtime routine with minimal resistance. Rebecca waited in the hallway while Michael helped his daughter change into pajamas, then joined them for the traditional bedtime story, a well-worn copy of Where the Wild Things Are, that Emma insisted Rebecca read with the monster voices. Rebecca obliged, her animated reading bringing fresh life to the familiar tale and drawing giggles from Emma despite her fatigue when the story concluded. She stood to leave the room, but Emma called her back. Wait, the little girl said, reaching under her pillow and pulling out Rebecca's light jacket, the one she had draped around Emma at Wonderland Gardens, now carefully folded. I forgot to give this back to you. Rebecca looked surprised, taking the jacket with gentle hands. You kept it all this time? Emma nodded, her expression suddenly serious. It reminded me of the best day, and it smelled like your flower perfume. But now I know you'll come back, so you can have it again. The simple statement, delivered with a child's unfiltered honesty, visibly moved Rebecca. She leaned down, pressing a soft kiss to Emma's forehead. Thank you for taking such good care of it, she said, her voice slightly unsteady. Sweet dreams. Dinosaur expert. Michael followed her from the room after his own goodnight kiss, leaving Emma's door slightly ajar, as was their custom. In the hallway, Rebecca stood holding the jacket, something vulnerable in her expression that made his heart twist. You okay? He asked quietly. She nodded, blinking rapidly. She's incredible. Michael. So open and trusting and full of love. Yeah, he agreed, leading the way back to the living room. She gets that from her mom. Sarah could make friends with anyone, saw the good in everyone. They settled on the couch, the remains of their coffee and cake still on the kitchen table forgotten, in the soft lamplight, with Emma's toys scattered around them and the comfortable shabbiness of a home that was lived in rather than showcased. Michael felt a strange sense of rightness that both thrilled and terrified him. "Thank you," Rebecca said after a moment of companionable silence. "For dinner, for including me in your evening, for—" She gestured vaguely, seeming to struggle for words for perhaps the first time since he'd known her. "For letting me be part of this. I know it might seem ordinary to you, but to me it's extraordinary," Michael suggested when she trailed off. "Yes," she agreed, meeting his eyes with disarming directness. "Exactly that." The moment stretched between them, charged with unspoken possibilities. Michael found himself studying her face, the intelligent dark eyes, the small freckle near her temple, the softness of her mouth currently curved in a hesitant smile. "Rebecca," he began, not entirely sure what he wanted to say, but needing to say something. "These past few weeks have been— Daddy." Emma's call from her bedroom broke the moment, and Michael stood automatically, parental instincts overriding all else. "Coming. Bug." He found Emma sitting up in bed, clutching Rex with a distressed expression. "I forgot to give Rex his goodnight kiss," she explained seriously. "He won't be able to sleep without it." Michael dutifully kissed the stuffed dinosaur on its worn snout. "Better," Emma nodded, settling back down. "Is Rebecca still here?" she asked sleepily. "Yes, but it's late. Bug. She'll probably go home soon." "Tell her I said goodnight again," Emma murmured, her eyes already closing, "and that she should come back tomorrow." "Ah, farm," Michael smiled, tucking the blanket around her shoulders. "I'll tell her. Now sleep tight, sweetheart," when he returned to the living room. Rebecca was standing by the mantel, examining the collection of family photos displayed there. She turned as he entered, a soft smile on her lips. "Rex emergency?" she asked. "Forgotten goodnight kiss," Michael confirmed with a chuckle. "A serious oversight." Rebecca glanced at her watch reluctantly. "I should probably go. It's getting late, and you both have early mornings." Michael nodded, though he found himself wishing she could stay longer. "Thank you for coming. It meant a lot to Emma." He paused, then added more quietly, "To me, too." Rebecca stepped closer, her expression open and direct. "Michael, I want to be clear about something. I'm not just here because of Emma, though she's absolutely wonderful. I'm here because I enjoy spending time with you. Both of you, yes, but also you." The simple declaration, delivered without pretense or game-playing, took his breath away. In the dating world he vaguely remembered from before Sarah, there had been rules and codes and careful stepping around directness. But Rebecca, it seemed, had no patience for such things. "I enjoy spending time with you too," he replied, matching her honesty with his own. "More than I expected to. More than I've enjoyed anything in a long time." Rebecca's smile widened, relief and pleasure evident in her expression. "Good, that's good." They stood there for a moment, the air between them charged with possibility. Then, with a decisiveness that seemed characteristic of her, Rebecca closed the distance between them and pressed her lips to his in a gentle, questioning kiss. Michael responded immediately, one hand coming up to cup her cheek as he returned the kiss with equal gentleness. It was brief, almost chaste, but it sent warmth spreading through his entire body, a sensation he had thought lost to him forever. When they separated, Rebecca's eyes were bright, her cheeks slightly flushed. "I've been wanting to do that for weeks," she admitted with a small laugh. "Me too," Michael confessed, surprised by how true it was. "I just wasn't sure if you—" "I do," she interrupted with a smile. "Very much. The simplicity of the exchange, the lack of games or uncertainty, felt like a gift." Michael walked her to the door, both of them suddenly shy despite the milestone they had just shared. "Call me tomorrow," Rebecca asked as she stepped onto the porch, her jacket the one Emma had kept draped over her arm. "Absolutely," Michael promised. She leaned in for one more quick kiss before walking to her car, turning to wave once before sliding into the driver's seat. Michael watched until her taillights disappeared around the corner, then closed the door, leaning against it for a moment as a smile spread across his face. Whatever this was, wherever it was going. It felt right in a way he hadn't expected to feel again. Different from what he'd had with Sarah, it could never be the same, but genuine and warm and full of possibility. For the first time in 3 years, Michael Reynolds allowed himself to imagine a future that held more than just survival, a future that might include not just contentment, but joy. The art show at Willow Creek Elementary transformed the school's gymnasium into a gallery of childhood creativity. Colorful paintings, clay sculptures, and mixed media collages lined the walls and tables, each labeled with the young artist's name and grade. Parents and siblings wandered among the displays, exclaiming over particularly impressive works and snapping photos to preserve the moment. Michael stood beside Emma, who was practically bouncing with anticipation as they waited near the entrance. She wore her favorite purple dress, the same one she'd chosen for their lunch with Rebecca at Sunrise Cafe, and had insisted Michael help her style her curls extra nice for the occasion. "Do you think she forgot?" Emma asked for the third time, craning her neck to see over the growing crowd of families. "She didn't forget," Michael assured her. Checking his watch, the show had only started 15 minutes ago, and Rebecca had texted earlier confirming she was on her way. "She's probably just stuck in traffic." Emma nodded, though her eyes remained fixed on the door. Her dinosaur drawing, a remarkably detailed triceratops rendered in colored pencil, held a place of honor on the third grade wall, complete with a blue ribbon for outstanding artistic achievement. Michael had already taken at least a dozen photos, planning to frame one for Emma's bedroom. "There she is," Emma suddenly exclaimed, waving frantically across the gymnasium. Michael turned to see Rebecca making her way through the crowd, elegant as always in a simple navy dress and low heels. She carried a small gift bag in one hand and was smiling broadly as she approached them. "I'm so sorry I'm late," she said, slightly breathless. "Board meeting ran over, and then traffic was terrible." "You're here now," Michael replied warmly, resisting the urge to kiss her in greeting. Their relationship had progressed steadily over the past 3 weeks, but he was still navigating the boundaries of public displays of affection, especially in settings like Emma's school. Rebecca seemed to understand, squeezing his hand briefly before turning her full attention to Emma. "So, where's this award-winning dinosaur I've been hearing about?" Emma grabbed Rebecca's hand, tugging her toward the third grade display. "Come see Ms. Thompson said it's the best dinosaur she's ever had in her class. I used a real book from the library to make sure the horns were exactly right." Michael followed behind, watching as Rebecca allowed herself to be led through the crowded gymnasium. Her focus entirely on Emma's excited explanation. The sight warmed him in ways he couldn't quite articulate, this accomplished woman who could command boardrooms and negotiate million-dollar contracts. Listening to his daughter with the same attentiveness she might give to her most important client, the past few weeks had brought Rebecca deeper into their lives in ways both small and significant. She'd helped Emma with a science project, joined them for Sunday morning pancakes, even attended a parent-teacher conference when Michael couldn't get time off work. Each step felt natural, unforced, as if she had always been meant to be part of their world. For Michael, the relationship was both exhilarating and terrifying. After Sarah's death, he had rebuilt his life around being Emma's father, around practical concerns like work schedules and grocery budgets. Romance hadn't been part of the equation, hadn't even seemed possible in the landscape of grief and responsibility he navigated daily. Yet here was Rebecca, somehow fitting herself into the spaces he hadn't realized were empty, bringing light and warmth without disrupting the careful balance he'd worked so hard to maintain. "Michael, this is incredible," Rebecca called, now standing before Emma's drawing. "She's captured the musculature perfectly. Most adults couldn't do this well." Pride swelled in his chest as he joined them, placing a hand on Emma's shoulder. "She's got a good eye. Sarah could draw like that too. She used to sketch the gardens at the hospital during her breaks." "Dad says I got Mom's artistic talent," Emma informed Rebecca seriously. "But I got his dinosaur knowledge." Macarnate Rebecca laughed, her eyes meeting Michael's over Emma's head. The perfect combination. She agreed. They spent the next hour exploring the art show, Emma proudly introducing Rebecca to her teacher and friends as they encountered them. Michael noticed the curious glances from other parents. Willow Creek was a small town, after all, and Rebecca's presence in their lives had not gone unobserved, but found he didn't much care what people thought. It wasn't until they were examining a particularly ambitious papier-mâché volcano that Michael realized Emma had wandered a few steps away and was now in deep conversation with Judy Harmon, her best friend's mother and one of the most notorious gossips in town. And she comes to our house all the time now, Emma was saying enthusiastically. She helped me with my science project and makes Dad laugh more than he used to. Michael moved closer, catching Rebecca's arm gently to draw her attention to the conversation. That's wonderful, sweetie, Judy was saying, her expression a mix of curiosity and something less benevolent. And what does your dad's friend do? She's not from Willow Creek, is she? No, she lives in Atlanta in a really tall building. Emma explained. She's the boss of a whole company that helps other companies with computers and stuff. She was on a magazine cover. Judy's eyebrows rose dramatically. Is that so? Well, isn't that impressive? The tone suggested she found it anything but, and Michael stepped forward quickly. Emma, have you shown Rebecca your classmate Tyler's robot sculpture yet? It's really cool. Emma shook her head, momentarily distracted. No, it moves when you press a button. Come on, Rebecca. You have to see it. As they moved away, Michael caught Judy's calculating gaze following them. The older woman offered a saccharine smile before turning to whisper to another mother standing nearby. Everything okay? Rebecca asked quietly as Emma led them toward the robot display. Fine, Michael assured her, though he couldn't quite hide his annoyance. Just small-town curiosity. Judy Harmon considers herself Willow Creek's unofficial historian, which is a polite way of saying she tracks everyone's business. Rebecca nodded, understanding in her eyes. And now she's tracking ours. The simple use of ours, the casual claiming of their relationship as something shared and defined, eased Michael's irritation immediately. Let her. It'll give her something to talk about at Bridge Club. Rebecca smiled, briefly touching his arm in a gesture that conveyed both affection and solidarity. I've dealt with far more intimidating scrutiny than Judy Harmon's. Corporate sharks make small-town gossips look like guppies. Michael laughed, his tension dissolving. I'd pay good money to see Judy in a boardroom showdown with you. My money's on me. Rebecca replied with a wink before turning her attention to Emma's enthusiastic explanation of the robot sculpture's mechanical components. By the time they left the art show, night had fallen, and Emma's energy was finally flagging after the excitement of the evening. Rebecca had presented her with the gift bag, a beautiful hardcover book on paleontology that had Emma clutching it to her chest like treasure, and they had celebrated with ice cream at the small parlor across from the school. Can Rebecca come back to our house? Emma asked as they walked toward the parking lot, her free hand tucked securely in Michael's. She hasn't seen my new dinosaur poster yet. Michael glanced at Rebecca, who smiled but shook her head slightly. Not tonight, Bug. It's already past your bedtime, and Rebecca has an early meeting tomorrow. Emma's disappointment was evident but short-lived. Tomorrow then we're making tacos for dinner. Actually, Rebecca interjected gently, I have to go to New York tomorrow for work. I'll be gone until Sunday. New York? Emma's eyes widened. That's really far away. It is, Rebecca agreed. But I'll bring you back something special, and we can FaceTime so you can tell me all about school. Okay. This compromise satisfied Emma, who immediately began listing potential souvenirs Rebecca might find in New York. With dinosaur-related items featuring prominently, they reached the parking lot, where Michael's car and Rebecca's SUV were parked several spaces apart. Emma hugged Rebecca fiercely, extracting multiple promises about FaceTime calls and New York gifts before reluctantly climbing into her booster seat in Michael's car. I'll give you a minute, Michael told her, closing the door before turning to Rebecca. New York, you didn't mention that earlier. It came up suddenly, Rebecca explained, looking genuinely regretful. A potential client, very high profile. My team has been courting them for months, and they finally agreed to a meeting. Michael nodded, understanding even as disappointment settled in his chest. This was the reality of dating someone like Rebecca. Her world was bigger, more demanding than his own. Good luck with the meeting. I hope you land the client. Rebecca studied his face for a moment, then stepped closer, her voice softening. I'll miss you both, she said simply. It's only 3 days, but still. We'll miss you too, Michael admitted, the words easier to say than he'd expected. Emma especially. She's gotten used to having you around. Just Emma, Rebecca asked, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Michael felt an answering smile spread across his face as he closed the distance between them. Not just Emma, he murmured before kissing her softly. The kiss was brief, they were. After all, in the elementary school parking lot with his daughter watching from the car, but filled with a warmth that promised more, when they separated. Rebecca's eyes remained closed for a moment, as if savoring the connection. Call me when you land, Michael asked, his hand still resting lightly on her waist. First thing, she promised, and I'll FaceTime tomorrow evening for Emma. They parted reluctantly, Rebecca heading to her car while Michael returned to his, where Emma was pretending not to have been watching their exchange with great interest. Dad, she asked as he started the engine, is Rebecca your girlfriend now? Michael considered the question, turning to look at his daughter in the rearview mirror. Would that be okay with you if she was? Emma nodded without hesitation. I like Rebecca. She's smart and pretty, and she likes dinosaurs almost as much as me. High praise indeed, Michael chuckled. Michael, so is she, Emma persisted, never one to be distracted from a direct question. Michael took a breath, making the decision to be honest rather than evasive. Yes, I think she is. Good, Emma declared with finality. Because she makes you happy. I can tell. The simple observation, delivered with a child's unfiltered perception, struck Michael deeply. She does, he agreed softly. She makes us both happy. The New York trip extended from 3 days to 5, then to a full week as Rebecca's potential client negotiations grew more complex. She called and texted regularly, FaceTime with Emma every evening, and sent pictures of the city that had Emma plotting future visits with increasing enthusiasm. For Michael, the absence created space for reflection. His feelings for Rebecca had developed with unexpected speed and intensity, catching him off guard with their depth. When had this accomplished? Beautiful woman become so essential to his happiness. When had her laugh, her thoughtful questions, her way of listening completely become things he couldn't imagine living without? And more unsettling what would happen when the novelty wore off, when she grew tired of his modest life, his financial struggles, the limitations that came with being a single father. Rebecca's world was so different from his own, filled with possibilities and options he could hardly imagine. These thoughts occupied him as he worked beneath the hood of Mrs. Patterson's troublesome Buick, the familiar routines of the garage providing little distraction from his internal debate. You look like a man wrestling with demons, Frank observed, wiping his hands on a shop rag as he approached. And I don't think they're carburetor demons. Michael straightened, stretching his back. Just thinking. About that fancy lady of yours, Frank asked, his weathered face creasing in a knowing smile. That obvious? Huh. Frank leaned against the workbench, arms crossed. Son, I've known you since you were changing oil in your daddy's garage after school. You get this look when something's eating at you, same look you had when you were trying to figure out how to propose to Sarah. The comparison startled Michael. It's not that serious, he protested automatically. No, Frank raised a bushy eyebrow. Could have fooled me. She's been at your place for dinner 3 times this week. Picked Emma up from school when you couldn't get away from that transmission job. Seems pretty serious to me. Michael sighed, wiping his hands absently. It's complicated, Frank, because she's rich and you're not. The older man's bluntness was characteristic but still jarring. That what's bothering you? Partly, Michael admitted. We live in different worlds. Eventually, she's going to realize that and what come to her senses? Frank snorted derisively. Give the woman some credit. Reynolds, she's smart enough to know her own mind. It's not that simple. Never is, Frank agreed. But let me ask you something. This woman, Rebecca, right, she make you happy? Michael nodded without hesitation. Yeah, she does. She good to Emma. The best. Emma adores her. She respect what you do, treat you like you matter. Another nod. Always has. From day one. Frank spread his hands as if the case was closed. Then stop borrowing trouble. Not everything needs analyzing to death. Sometimes good things just happen. And the smart move is to grab on with both hands. Before Michael could respond, his phone buzzed in his pocket, pulling it out. He saw Rebecca's name on the screen. Speak of the devil, Frank said with a knowing grin, already moving away to give Michael privacy. Remember what I said. Son, don't overthink it. Michael answered the call, Rebecca's voice bringing an immediate smile to his face despite his earlier worries. Hey, how's New York? Cold, noisy, and I miss you, she replied without preamble. Good news. Though we closed the deal this morning, I'm flying home tonight. Relief and pleasure washed through him. That's great. Congratulations on landing the client. Thank you, she said, and he could hear the smile in her voice. Listen, I was thinking if you and Emma don't have plans tomorrow evening, I'd love to take you both out to celebrate, anywhere you want. I think we can clear our very busy social calendar, Michael teased. Emma will be thrilled. She's been counting down the days until you're back. Just Emma? Rebecca asked, echoing their exchange from the school parking lot. Michael's smile widened. Not just Emma, he admitted softly. Good, Rebecca replied, her voice equally soft. Because I've been thinking about you both constantly. This trip has made me realize something important. What's that? Michael asked, curiosity piqued by her tone. I'll tell you tomorrow, she said, in person. It's not a phone conversation. The statement sent a ripple of both anticipation and anxiety through him. That sounds ominous. It's not, Rebecca assured him quickly. It's the opposite. Actually, just trust me. Always, Michael replied. Surprised by how true the word felt, they talked for a few more minutes before Rebecca had to leave for another meeting. After hanging up, Michael stood motionless for a moment, Frank's words and Rebecca's mysterious statement circling in his mind. Maybe the older man was right. Maybe he was overthinking things, creating problems where none existed. Rebecca had shown him nothing but sincerity from the moment they met, had integrated herself into their lives with genuine care and affection. Perhaps it was time to trust her and see where this unexpected journey might lead, with renewed focus. Michael returned to Mrs. Patterson's Buick, the rest of his shift passing quickly as anticipation for Rebecca's return replaced his earlier doubts. The restaurant Rebecca chose for their celebration dinner was neither the fanciest in Atlanta nor the most casual, a perfect middle ground that spoke to her understanding of Michael's discomfort with excessive luxury. Lighthouse Bistro offered waterfront views of the city, excellent food, and a relaxed atmosphere that welcomed families while still feeling special. Emma, dressed in her third outfit of the evening after much deliberation, clutched the small gift bag Rebecca had brought her from New York, a detailed model of a velociraptor that had already been named Roxy and deemed worthy of the coveted bedside table position. You look beautiful, Michael told Rebecca as they were seated at a table overlooking the water. She wore a simple black dress that somehow managed to be both elegant and understated. Her dark hair swept into a loose updo that framed her face perfectly. Thank you, she replied with a warm smile. It feels good to be back in normal clothes after a week of business suits. Did you see any real dinosaur bones in New York? Emma asked, already focused on the children's menu the server had provided, but still pursuing her favorite topic. I did, actually, Rebecca replied, surprising them both. I visited the American Museum of Natural History on my lunch break yesterday. They have an amazing dinosaur hall with complete skeletons. Emma's eyes widened with delight. Really, did you take pictures? Rebecca pulled out her phone, scrolling to a series of photos she'd taken specifically for Emma. See, that's a T-Rex skeleton, one of the most complete ever found. Michael watched as his daughter and Rebecca huddled over the phone, discussing fossil preservation and extinction theories with equal enthusiasm. The sight filled him with a warmth that had become increasingly familiar over the past months, a sense of rightness, of pieces fitting together in ways he hadn't known were possible. The evening flowed with easy conversation and laughter. Rebecca shared amusing stories from her business trip, carefully edited for Emma's ears, but still entertaining. Michael updated her on local happenings, Mrs. Wilson's cat getting stuck in a tree again, the minor controversy over the new stoplight on Main Street, Emma's class winning the school recycling contest. It wasn't until dessert, a chocolate lava cake for Emma and coffee for the adults, that Rebecca's earlier promise of an important conversation resurfaced in Michael's mind. She had been relaxed and present all evening, giving no indication of something significant waiting to be discussed. After dinner, they walked along the waterfront park adjacent to the restaurant, Emma running ahead to explore a small playground, while Michael and Rebecca followed at a more leisurely pace. "She's missed you," Michael observed as they watched Emma demonstrate her swing technique for a younger child. "We both have." Rebecca's hand found his, fingers intertwining naturally. "I missed you too, more than I expected to. Honestly, video calls are a poor substitute for actually being together." They walked in comfortable silence for a moment, the city lights reflecting on the water beside them. Then Rebecca stopped, turning to face him directly. "I meant what I said on the phone," she began, her expression suddenly serious. "This trip made me realize something important." Michael felt his heart rate increase slightly. "I'm listening." Rebecca took a deep breath, as if gathering courage. "I've built my whole life around my company, around achievement and success as defined by other people. I convinced myself it was what I wanted, what would make me happy." She paused, her gaze steady on his. "And then I met you and Emma, and everything shifted." "Rebecca," she shook her head slightly, asking him to let her continue. "This past week, sitting in those meetings, staying in fancy hotels, dining at expensive restaurants, all the things that used to feel like markers of success, they felt empty. All I could think about was getting back here, to you both, to movie nights on your couch and helping Emma with homework and listening to your terrible dad jokes." The last part was said with a smile that softened the vulnerability of her confession. "What are you saying?" Michael asked, his voice gentle. "I'm saying that I'm falling in love with you." Michael Reynolds. Rebecca replied simply, "With you and with the life we've been building together these past months, and it terrifies me and thrills me in equal measure." The words hung in the air between them, honest and unadorned. Michael felt something shift in his chest, a tension releasing, a certainty taking root where doubt had flourished. "I'm falling in love with you too," he admitted, the truth of it washing through him like a wave. "I think I have been since that day at Wonderland Gardens, when you rode the teacups with Emma and came off laughing like it was the best thing you'd ever done." Rebecca's smile was radiant. "It was. Until that moment, everything since then has somehow been even better." Michael pulled her closer, one hand coming up to cup her cheek. "Even when Emma spilled spaghetti sauce all over your white blouse last week." "Even then," Rebecca confirmed with a laugh. "Especially then." Their kiss was deeper than previous ones, filled with newfound certainty and promise. When they separated, Rebecca rested her forehead against his, both of them slightly breathless. "There's something else," she said after a moment. "A business opportunity I want to discuss with you." Michael pulled back slightly, confusion replacing the warmth of seconds before. "Business opportunity." Rebecca nodded, reaching for his hand again. "Do you remember our conversation at Wonderland, when you told me about losing your engineering career after Sarah died?" "Vaguely," Michael acknowledged, unsure where this was going. "I've been thinking about it ever since," Rebecca continued, "about how many parents must be in similar situations, skilled professionals, forced to take whatever jobs allow them to care for their children, sacrificing careers they spent years building." Understanding began to dawn. "And And I want to create a division within Morgan Innovations focused on flexible, remote work options for parents, particularly single parents, Rebecca explained, her eyes bright with enthusiasm. Consulting positions that can be done from home, on schedules that accommodate school hours and childhood illnesses, real, professional work that pays accordingly. Michael stared at her, processing the implications. That's a huge undertaking. It is, Rebecca agreed. But it's also completely aligned with what we already do, helping companies modernize their approaches to work. And I want you to help me build it. Me? Michael's surprise was evident. Rebecca, I haven't worked in engineering for 3 years. My skills are still there, she interrupted firmly. Maybe a bit rusty, but fundamentally sound. And more importantly, you understand the need better than anyone. You've lived it. Michael fell silent, overwhelmed by the scope of what she was suggesting. It wasn't just a job offer, it was a chance to reclaim part of himself he'd thought lost forever. To use his education and experience in meaningful ways again? I don't want you to answer now, Rebecca added, sensing his internal struggle. Take time to think about it. Talk to Emma. Consider what it would mean for your daily life. This isn't about me swooping in to fix things. It's about recognizing your value and creating something meaningful together. Before Michael could respond, Emma came running back from the playground, breathless with excitement. Dad, Rebecca, I went all the way across the monkey bars without falling. Did you see we missed it? Michael admitted, grateful for the interruption. Can you show us again? As Emma raced back to demonstrate her newfound skill. Rebecca squeezed Michael's hand reassuringly. No pressure, she said softly. Whatever you decide, it doesn't change anything between us. I promise. Michael nodded, believing her completely. Whatever concerns he'd harbored about their different worlds, about temporary fascination versus lasting commitment, had dissolved in the face of her honest declaration and thoughtful proposal. They turned to watch Emma swing confidently across the monkey bars, her face alight with accomplishment and joy, standing there beside Rebecca, their hands still linked. Michael felt a sense of possibility opening before him, not just for himself, but for all three of them. The future, which had for so long seemed a narrow path of survival and sacrifice, now stretched wide with potential, bright with promise, and for the first time since Sarah's death. Michael found himself looking forward rather than back, anticipating what might come rather than mourning what was lost. Come on, he said, tugging Rebecca gently toward the playground. Let's go congratulate our monkey bar champion. Our champion. The words felt right, a simple acknowledgement of the family they were becoming. Step by careful step. Day by ordinary, extraordinary day, as they crossed the grassy expanse toward Emma, who was now waving triumphantly from the top of the climbing structure. Michael knew with sudden clarity that some questions didn't need to be overthought. Some answers were as simple as the happiness reflected in his daughter's eyes and the warmth of Rebecca's hand in his. Frank had been right. Sometimes good things just happen, and the smart move is to grab on with both hands.